I'm Jimmy, and I want to read you something. Indian built America's first motorcycle. With our technology and vision, we are confident we will deliver the classic Indian motorcycle, enhanced by the quality and performance for which Polaris and Victory are known. That was Scott Wine, CEO of Polaris Industries, April 19, 2011. The day Polaris acquired Indian Motorcycle. He sounded genuinely proud. The press release had that energy of a company that believed it had just done something important for American motorcycling history. 14 years later, in October 2025, Polaris sold Indian Motorcycle to a private equity firm called Carolwood LP. Carolwood was founded in 2014 in Los Angeles. They invest in restaurant chains, real estate media companies, and sports media properties. As of the first quarter of 2026, America's first and oldest motorcycle brand, founded in Springfield, Massachusetts in 1901, winner of the first Daytona 200, holder of multiple world speed records, is now owned by a firm whose primary expertise is restaurants. I have been doing this channel long enough to know that nothing in the motorcycle industry surprises me anymore. After what we found in the tire videos, the gear video, the helmet video, the pattern of American and European heritage brands ending up in private equity portfolios is not new. But Indian is different. Indian is not a helmet brand or a jacket company. Indian is the motorcycle that was here before Harley-Davidson, 3 years before Harley. And the way this brand has lived and died and been revived and died again and been revived again across 125 years is one of the most remarkable stories I have found in 2 years of running this channel. Let me tell you the whole thing, because the end of it, the part that is happening right now, only makes sense if you understand how many times this brand has already been through the machine. In 1901, a bicycle racer named George Hendy and an engineer named Oscar Hedstrom opened a factory in downtown Springfield, Massachusetts, and built the first Indian motorcycle. Not one of the first. The first. The machine had a 1.75 horsepower single-cylinder engine, and it worked. Within 2 years, Hedstrom rode an Indian from New York City to Springfield and back, setting a world speed record at 56 miles per hour. By 1906, Indian dealers rode one of their machines from San Francisco to New York in 31 days without a single mechanical failure. In 1911, Indian factory team riders took the first, second, and third place finishes at the Isle of Man Tourist Trophy, the most prestigious motorcycle race in the world. By the 1910s, the Hendy Manufacturing Company, operating out of a massive complex in Springfield that workers called the Wigwam, had become the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world. That is not revisionist marketing. That is what actually happened. Indian was not a competitor to Harley-Davidson in the early years. Indian was the standard that every other manufacturer was trying to reach. Harley was 3 years younger and spent most of its early history trying to catch up. The factory in Springfield turned out 32,000 motorcycles in 1913. They developed the Scout in 1920 and the Chief in 1922, two platforms that would define American cruiser motorcycle DNA for generations. During World War II, Indian supplied the military with tens of thousands of motorcycles, the same way Harley did. The Wigwam was an American industrial institution. Then came the 1950s, and the decisions that ended everything. The collapse of the original Indian Motorcycle Company is one of the most documented cases of management failure in American industrial history. Ralph Rogers, who took over the company in 1945, made a catastrophic strategic bet. He decided Indian needed to compete with lightweight British motorcycles that were flooding the American market: Triumphs, BSAs, Nortons. He launched a series of small displacement Indian models that were unreliable and poorly executed. Riders rejected them. Meanwhile, the heavyweight Chief, the bike that had kept Indian alive through the Depression and the war, was neglected and underfunded. By 1953, the Indian Motorcycle Manufacturing Company was in bankruptcy. The Wigwam was silent, the last Chief rolled off the line, and that was it. 52 years after the first motorcycle came out of that Springfield factory, the original Indian was finished. What happened next is the part of this story that I personally think is the most revealing about what a brand name is actually worth when it is separated from the organization that built it. Brockhouse Engineering bought the rights to the Indian name out of bankruptcy. They did not buy the factory. They did not buy the engineers. They did not buy anything that made Indian what it was. They bought the name and the logo, and then they took Royal Enfield motorcycles, British bikes, painted them red, put Indian badges on them, and sold them in America as Indian motorcycles from 1955 to 1960. Your grandfather might have bought what he thought was an Indian in 1957. It was a Royal Enfield with a different badge. Americans were not impressed. The scheme failed, and the Indian name went dormant again. That was the template. Buy the name, attach it to something else. Fail. Move on. It would happen 5 more times over the next 50 years. I was talking to someone at a bike meet a few weeks ago who told me his father had ridden Indians his whole life. He showed me a photo on his phone, an old Chief from the early 1950s, deep red, skirted fenders, the war bonnet on the tank. His father had passed and he was looking for a new Indian to keep the connection to that history. He asked me whether the new ones were worth it. I did not have a simple answer for him. After spending the last 3 weeks researching the story, I still do not have a simple answer. What I do have is the full picture, and I think he deserves the full picture. So does everyone who is considering spending $30,000 to $40,000 on a new Indian right now. I will move through the revival attempts quickly because the pattern is consistent and the details are grim. Floyd Clymer, a motorcycle dealer and publisher, acquired the Indian trademark in 1963 and spent 7 years attaching it to Italian mini bikes and British-engined hybrids. He died in 1970. His attorney took over and kept selling rebranded products until 1977, when that operation also declared bankruptcy. The trademark then passed through a succession of owners that included Philip Zangi, who was later convicted of securities fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering related to his Indian revival claims. An Indian prototype was rolled out in New Mexico in 1994, but the company behind it was already compromised. By 1999, after a federal bankruptcy court fight over the trademark, the Indian Motorcycle Company of America was born from the merger of 9 different companies. They launched production in Gilroy, California in 1999, using a Harley clone engine sourced from S&S Cycles. In 2003, the Gilroy operation declared bankruptcy. Stelican Limited, a private equity firm, acquired the rights in 2004 and moved production to Kings Mountain, North Carolina. They made a small number of bikes before selling to Polaris in 2011. Between 1953 and 2011, a span of 58 years, 6 different organizations tried to build something real out of the Indian name. Every single one of them failed. The name survived. The company beneath it never did. Polaris acquired Indian in April 2011. The terms of the transaction were not disclosed. What was disclosed was that Polaris already owned Victory Motorcycles, a brand they had launched in 1998, built from scratch, the first all-new American motorcycle from a major company in nearly 60 years. Now Polaris had 2 American cruiser motorcycle brands. Victory, which they had designed and built and invested 18 years of engineering into, and Indian, which had the heritage story that Victory never could. For 6 years, both brands existed simultaneously under the Polaris umbrella. Victory riders, who had been loyal to a genuinely well-engineered American motorcycle, watched the company pour increasingly more resources into Indian, while Victory was quietly starved of development funding. Victory sales peaked in 2012, 1 year after Polaris bought Indian, and declined every year after that. In 3 out of the 5 years before the announcement, Victory lost money. It represented only 3% of Polaris' total sales. On January 9, 2017, Polaris announced it was ending Victory motorcycles, effective immediately. The announcement came on a Monday morning. Dealers who had built their businesses around the brand found out at the same time everyone else did. One dealer in South Dakota described what it would do to his August, the Sturgis Rally month, the month that made his year. Another dealer said his store had sunk years of investment into Victory and had no warning. The Victory plant in Spirit Lake, Iowa had approximately 1,000 workers producing both Indian and Victory motorcycles. After the shutdown, it continued producing Indian. 18 years of Victory, 25 industry awards, 60 model designs, gone in a Monday morning press release because it was 3% of revenue and losing money. I personally think about the people who bought a Victory in 2016, the last full model year, trusting that Polaris was a real company with a long-term commitment to the brand. Their warranty support continued, their parts availability continued for 10 years as promised, but the cultural reality of owning a motorcycle from a dead brand is something no warranty covers. I drive a 2000 Ford Ranger I bought for cash. I have made a decision to opt out of the system where a marketing department decides what you want and you pay for the story they build around it. I am not naive enough to think that makes me immune to it, but it does make me look at things like the Victory shutdown differently than someone who bought a Victory in 2016 might. That writer trusted the brand. The brand was real. The product was genuinely good. Reviewers consistently said so. What the writer did not know was that the company behind the brand had already made a different bet, and Victory was going to be sacrificed to fund it. So what happened to Indian under Polaris between 2011 and 2025? Polaris rebuilt the brand legitimately. They designed their own engine, the Thunderstroke V-twin. They developed their own frames, their own suspension, their own technology. The new Indians were real motorcycles built by real engineers. The Chief, the Challenger, the Scout, these are well-regarded bikes. The FTR, inspired by flat track racing, was probably the most interesting motorcycle Indian has put out in decades, but the numbers underneath were a problem throughout. Indian only achieved its first profitable fiscal year under Polaris in 2023, 14 years after acquisition. In 2022, Polaris reported a 30% drop in Indian motorcycle revenue in Q1. Full year 2024 saw Polaris total sales down 20%, with the motorcycle division reflecting broader industry softness. Net income across the company dropped 82% in Q3 2024 compared to the same quarter in 2023. Indian was 7% of Polaris revenue. A company that makes snowmobiles, ATVs, the Polaris Ranger, and the RZR was carrying a motorcycle brand that represented $1 in 14 of their total income. And after the FTR was quietly discontinued in early 2025, the lineup had contracted rather than expanded. The writing on the wall was readable before the announcement. In October 2025, Polaris sold a majority stake in Indian Motorcycle to Carolwood LP, a private equity firm based in Los Angeles. The deal was expected to close in the first quarter of 2026. Polaris said it would retain a small equity position. The transaction was projected to add $50 million to Polaris annual earnings, confirmation that carrying Indian had been costing them rather than earning them. Carolwood LP was founded in 2014. Their existing portfolio includes restaurant chains, a real estate media company called Estate, sports media properties, and real estate investments. The principal, Andrew Schanfeld, said in the announcement, "We are honored to help usher in its next chapter as an independent company and to support its continued growth as a symbol of performance and pride." Symbol. That word is doing a lot of work in that sentence. The new CEO of Indian Motorcycle is Mike Kennedy. Kennedy spent 26 years at Harley-Davidson, including serving as vice president and managing director of the Americas. He later ran Vance & Hines, the exhaust manufacturer, and Rumbalon, the power sports dealership group. So America's oldest motorcycle brand, founded in 1901, 3 years before Harley, winner of the first Daytona 200, is now being run by a career Harley-Davidson executive owned by a Los Angeles private equity firm whose primary expertise is restaurants and real estate, with its design center in Bergdorf, Switzerland, manufactured in Iowa and Minnesota. The name on the tank is the same name that came out of Springfield, Massachusetts in 1901. Everything beneath it has been replaced, rebuilt, sold, failed, revived, sold again, and handed to a restaurant investor 7 times in 125 years. I want to be careful about what I'm actually saying here because this channel does not deal in simple, good or bad narratives. Carolwood says it has never sold a brand it has acquired. If that is true, and if they understand what Indian actually needs, genuine engineering investment, a product lineup that connects with riders under 50, a reason to buy Indian that goes beyond nostalgia, then this could be the beginning of something good. The brand has real potential. The Challenger is a legitimate motorcycle. The Scout is a legitimate motorcycle. there is something worth building on. What concerns me, based on everything this channel has covered over the last 8 weeks, across tires, gear, helmets, and now motorcycles themselves, is the pattern. When private equity acquires a heritage brand, the first years look like investment. The second phase looks like efficiency. The third phase is where the institutional knowledge walks out the door and the product quality quietly degrades in ways that take years to show up in reviews. Dainese followed that pattern. Bell Helmets followed that pattern. The Craftsman factory in Fort Worth followed that pattern. Indian has been through that pattern 6 times already. It has survived because the name itself is genuinely powerful. But a name is not a motorcycle. A name does not develop suspension, or design a new engine, or train the next generation of engineers. A name is what gets affixed to a Royal Enfield when the original company is gone. The rider at that bike meet with the photo of his father's chief deserved a straight answer. Here's the straightest one I can give right now. The bike in the showroom is real. The engineering is real. The people who built it are real. What sits above them, the ownership structure, the private equity firm in Los Angeles, the career Harley executive running the company, is exactly the same structure that has failed this brand 7 times in 73 years. Whether Carolwood is the one that finally gets it right is a question nobody can answer yet. But you should know what you are actually buying when you buy the name. Drop a comment telling me what you think happens next to Indian. Genuine question, I have my view, but this community has surprised me before. And if you know someone who owns an Indian right now, share this with them. Not to scare them, because the bike they own is real, and it deserves to be owned by someone who understands what they have. Links to the previous investigations, the tire video, the gear video, and the helmet video are in the description if you want the full picture of what is happening to the brands you trust. The pattern in this industry is consistent. Indian is just the version of it with the longest and most painful history.